What this internship has showed me about my calling is that I have a calling and a love for the youth. I've noticed that whenever I go, it doesn't matter what church I go to, I always seek out the youth. I do. I love the youth. It's so much easier for me to connect with the youth and talk with the youth and have conversation with them than it is for me to have conversation with adults. And I don't know if it's that, maybe it's just, I'm slow in maturing or whatever it may be. I love to talk to the youth. I love to connect with the youth. And the truth is when I go to a church, I really base whether I think that they're successful or not based on their youth programs, based on their youth ministry. Because here's the thing is I think that when it comes to the adults are at a point where they're choosing to be there. Now, you may be able to do a great job at getting the adults to choose to be there and things like that, but when it comes to the youth, if your youth are excited to be at your church, I think that that's a major blessing, and I think that that's awesome because you know what? A lot of youth are forced to be there. And so if you can give them something to be excited about, and then that just shows me that you care about your church and that you're doing something right and that you're obviously sharing Christ's love even with the students. And so many times they get overlooked. So many times people look at them as second-class citizens in the church too often. And many times it's people look at them as the future of the church and they're like, yeah, the youth are the future of our church. But here's the problem with that point of view is the youth are not the future of the church. The youth are the church right now. And we need them to be involved because if you want the youth to stay now, if you want the youth to stay in the future, you have to involve them now. And that is just a passion of my heart. And I mean, this is just one of those things that when I start talking about this, I really love the youth, and I really got a passion for the youth. I got a passion to teach the youth how to have beautiful relationships, not just relationships with the opposite sex, but also relationships with the same sex, meaning that they need to have good friendships that are going to keep them accountable and keep encouraging them. See, we focus so much on the fact of how sexual our culture is and things like that sometimes we forget. Maybe the problem is that even in the church we focus on doing sex right and all that stuff, and that's a good thing, that's needed, but maybe we don't focus enough on just the simple friendships and relationships of friends in the church, and therefore we don't even know how to build relationships with people of the same sex because people start to assume, oh, well, if they're building a relationship with the same sex, then they're homosexual, and that's sad. We need to be able to build a relationship with the same sex and be able to have that relationship so that we can go on and have people that are going to keep us accountable. I know that if it wasn't for some of the guys that I was friends with growing up, I would have real problems. I mean, the fact that I had this core group of friends growing up through junior high and high school, and they were what kept me at the church, and they were what kept me kind of going and staying on the narrow path, if you will. And so I have a passion to teach them that, and I know that that's my calling. I don't know if I'm going to go into, in the future, I don't know if I'm going to go into full-time paid ministry or if I'm just going to be doing youth ministry, volunteering or whatnot, but I'm going to make sure that I am always involved in youth ministry, whether that's, overseeing it or volunteering it or whatever it may be. It is so important, and I know that my calling is youth ministry, and that excites me, and I get passionate about that, and I love to share with people about youth ministry, and I love to learn about youth ministry, and I love to know what's going on in youth ministry. And reality is I know that we call it something separate, but for me, that is what ministry is. It's just ministry. It's not even that it's youth ministry. I don't look at it as a second class or a lower class. That is a very important role to me, and I love to set up camp right there with the youth and hang out with them and show them how important they are and show them how much they're cared for and loved on. Looking back at this internship and looking at maybe the possibilities of what things I would choose to do differently if possible, probably the first thing that I would probably choose to do is I would probably choose to participate with a pastor that was not bivocational. Again, not that Brian did anything wrong. I think that Brian did a lot of great things, and like I said before, I mean, I can't say enough good things about him, but he is strapped for time because he's got his business going on and he's got the church, and so trying to connect with him, it was sometimes very difficult because we had two very busy schedules that we had to find free time to get together and meet. And sometimes it was like quick moments for lunch here, for lunch there, and both of us have a schedule as far as how long we get our lunch break, and so sometimes it was very difficult, but we spent a lot of time on Saturdays or Sundays together kind of talking and encouraging each other in ministry, and that was when we spent most of our time, was on the weekends. But that's just one thing that I would change. I would really look for somebody that was a full-time pastor, that this is what they had to do, and they had a little bit more freedom in their schedule to kind of be able to do that. Not that they would be less busy, it's just that they have a little bit more freedom to plan their schedule than, say, somebody that has a full-time job outside of the church that is focusing on maybe doing some other things as well. And so that was just a real difficulty that I just didn't think about. But I did learn from that, from having him be bivocational, because I've been bivocational, and so I get to see the difficulties of that from somebody else's perspective as opposed to just mine. And so as much as I would change that, it was a real blessing in the situation that I was in as well. Another thing that I would probably change is, if possible, I would change the timing, because I just feel like it was done around the holidays, and there's so much going on at a church around the holidays that sometimes it's hard to actually do an internship, because things are being done differently at church than they would be done the other 12 months or the other 11 months of the year. And so I think having that internship fall right around Christmas and New Year's, and people are going on vacation and people are gone and people are, visitors are coming and things like that. So much is changing, and you got this year you had Christmas that fell on Wednesday and New Year's that fell on Wednesday. So if you have a Wednesday night service like we do, that's canceled, and so churches, there's just so much going. Like I said, there's so much going on. So many Christmas parties going on and things like that you have to really work around. And so I think if I had to do it over, I would prefer to kind of do this internship and not have this internship around the holidays, because I think that made things very difficult. The last thing that I would change is I would probably choose to do it at a bigger church as well, because although there are some great things to say about the smaller churches and things like that, is you're a little bit more limited on what you get to do and what you get to experience. I think that there's a lot of freedom in a smaller church, but sometimes there's a little less structure at a smaller church. And so at the bigger church with the more structure, I think that there could be some things that may be more impactful, some things that you can take with you a little bit more at a larger church. Some more opportunities there. It's just kind of hard to say until you experience that. But I think I would prefer a little bit bigger church. I think I would prefer a pastor that was in full-time ministry. And like I said, I would prefer to have this internship not be done over the holidays. I think that made it a little difficult. So 3 lessons that I've learned is, first of all, I learned that starting a new youth ministry on a Saturday is extremely difficult and probably not the wisest choice, particularly around the holidays. When you don't have a youth ministry, it's hard to kind of get that momentum by choosing a different day of the week for people to come and participate in doing ministry. As much as that's what I wanted to do, as much as I had some great plans for that, because I thought, we'll meet on Saturday, we'll have a Bible study in the morning, then we'll take off and we'll do something really fun in the afternoon, and that might get students involved and that might get students there. I found out that not a lot of people are going to show up because you don't have any momentum. You don't have any money building up in the bank to take that deposit out yet. And so one of the ways that we're adjusting that, and we're actually going to be adjusting that this weekend, is we're actually going to start doing youth ministry during the church service on a Sunday morning once a month, and we're going to do it once for 5th through 8th grade and once for 9th through 12th grade. And we're going to see how that'll work and how that'll adjust, and see if we can't build a little bit of momentum that way, and then maybe start to build a youth ministry from that aspect. And we'll still be doing some events and different things like that. The other thing that I learned is that being bivocational is very, very difficult. You're pulled in so many different directions. You got your family, you got your job, you got ministry, and you're pulled in all of these different directions, and sometimes it's really hard to do that. And so I learned that bivocational, if at all possible, bivocational is not where I want to be. There are many blessings about it, but it is very difficult to do, and I want to be able to, I just want to be able to pour my life into ministry, and that's what I want to be able to do. And some of the administrative stuff is really hard for me to do from a ministry standpoint, and so if I'm able to do that full time and pour my life into that, then I can get kind of the work side of that ministry done and have the time to do that, and then I can move on and do the enjoyable parts of ministry, if you will, the meeting with people and building the relationships and the preaching and things like that. And so bivocational ministry is very difficult. The last thing that I learned is it's very important to have a vision. It's very important to have kind of a goal set, a goal of where you want to be with your church in the future. Because I've seen what it looks like to not have that and not know where you want to go and not have a plan of where you're going. And I've seen it happen to where you do have a plan and you do have an end game, for the year and for 5 years and for 10 years. I've seen that, and I've seen how that works, and I've learned how important that really is. And so again, the three things that I've learned is that starting a youth ministry on another day of the week that you're not already meeting for church is very difficult. I've learned that being bivocational is very difficult, and I've also learned that vision is extremely important.